The structure by which the world is controlled by a few people, literally a handful at the very top, is like Russian dolls, one doll inside another, inside another, inside another. I call this web in which they all fit the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, illuminated into knowledge that the rest of us don't get. And that Illuminati has been manipulating for centuries to bring about what is now appearing before our eyes.
The notion of a few hands that surreptitiously pull all the strings is not new. It is as old as the oldest secret societies.
With some of the most famous people in the world today, you find that their rituals are an absolute mirror of the ones that were carried out in Babylon, in Egypt, and the ancient world in general. It's an unbroken span of manipulation from the far ancient world to the present day.
While it's difficult to pinpoint when the world's first secret societies were formed, cuneiform tablets from the Sumerian civilization may suggest it is as early as 2500 BC. But we do know that Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III creates in 1500 BC a group that follows the modern definition of a secret society, elite members who perform secret rituals and possess secret knowledge they use to influence civilization.
They were the people that built the fantastic structures like the pyramids and stuff with knowledge that a primitive people would never have been able to do.
The reason a lot of the ancient knowledge had to be kept secret was simply because the knowledge they had would have empowered them. And that is not what the ruling leadership desired.
By the end of the first millennium AD, one small group of 9 French crusaders formed under the name Knights Templar.
Now, the official story is that they were created to protect pilgrims visiting the Holy Land. Right? Well, there's 9 of these guys for 9 years. I mean, they're going to protect a lot of pilgrims. Of course, there's a cover story. They went to Jerusalem and they stayed there for 9 years, and they were searching for something, and it seems they found it, whatever it was. And suddenly things changed very rapidly. This small little 9-man organization started to massively expand.
Just what the Knights Templar find remains a mystery. The persistent rumor is that they find the Holy Grail, which is, depending on alternate legends, either the chalice used by Christ at the Last Supper or a piece of the cross he was crucified on.
It became one of the most, if not the most influential organizations in Europe. To join the Templars, you had to give them all your wealth and land, and they were signing up the noble families of Europe. They became massively wealthy, massively quickly.
The Knights Templar were holy, at the same time they were engaged in warfare. And because of these two attributes, they needed money. They needed money to pay for their warfare. And they had a real ability to raise money because they could call on people's piety to pay for their expenses.
For nearly 200 years, the Knights Templar gained hundreds, perhaps thousands of members from the wealthiest of the European elite. Although the total membership remains unknown, we do know the Knights Templar are able to amass a fortune they use to exert tremendous control throughout Europe by, in effect, controlling its largest private banking system.
They had the crown heads of Europe up to their neck in debt to them.
In 1307, the Knights Templar are almost wiped out. The King of France convinces Pope Clement V that they are not the holy defenders of the faith, but in fact are seeking to destroy it.
I think it was the King of France's desire for their wealth more than anything else, which caused him to turn against them. But the vehicle that he used to turn against them was a conspiracy theory. He found it useful, as have many kings and many other people since then found it useful to adopt a conspiracy theory as a means to attack an enemy.
Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, is burned at the stake in Paris in 1314. But a few surviving Templars are believed to have escaped execution.
The Templars went north, fleeing from France, to Scotland, and they re-emerged under another name, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is the biggest secret society in the world. Its membership pervades world politics, business, banking, the whole shebang. And it's the Templars under another name.
According to the conspiracy theorists' view of the world, the Knights Templar, fleeing persecution by the King of France, bring their secret knowledge, whatever that may have been, to Britain and form regional clubs called lodges in a new organization called Freemasonry. Modern Masonry, however, claims no connection to the Knights Templar.
Probably the number one secret society in terms of fear and speculation are the Freemasons.
The Freemasons are the connective tissue that have carried ancient knowledge all the way through the centuries up into the modern secret society.
Just about the only thing conspiracy advocates and Freemason historians agree on is the date of the first Grand Lodge meeting of the organization, June 24, 1717, at the Goose and Gridiron Ale House in London, England. The Freemasons were founded as an organization dedicated to the free exchange of ideas.
That might sound simple and obvious today, but there weren't many such places where individuals could get together and freely discuss the issues of the day.
And almost from its inception, there are conspiracy theories about the Freemasons' hidden agenda.
They were seen as subversive by the autocratic kings who ruled at that time, who fostered theories about how subversive and evil these lodges were, whereas in fact they were nothing of the sort.
Freemasons arrived in America as early as the 1730s, and very quickly they established a membership roll of prestigious colonists.
Of the 56 signatories of the American Declaration of Independence, 50 were known Freemasons, only one was known not to be. George Washington's first inauguration in 1789 was a Freemasonic ritual. Look at the pictures.
At the same time that American Freemasons are supposedly using their secret knowledge to create a new country, a Freemason in Bavaria by the name of Adam Weishaupt formed a secret society known as the Order of the Illuminati.
The Illuminati were a small group that attempted to apply the ideals of enlightenment. They tried to create a just society in a corrupt world, and they wanted to do this all in a private way.
Within a few short years, the Illuminati grows to over 2,000 members from throughout Europe. The organization claims to be a forum for free thinkers to discuss political change. But to the rulers of Europe, it is a subversive secret society, and the Illuminati is suppressed just 8 years after its inception in 1784.
The Illuminati were simply closed down by the ruler in Austria. And that was that. They went out of business, but not in the imagination of people who fear.
The Illuminati were not just involved, they were the driving force behind the creation of what we now call the United States.
Ike and others point to the fact that the Illuminati symbol, the pyramid with an all-seeing raised capstone, is also a symbol of American governance.
The reverse of the Great Seal of the United States had this Illuminati symbol on it. And one of the great frontmen for the Illuminati in the 20th century, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, put it on the dollar bill, the same symbol. And if you look at the words above and below, it actually says, welcoming the arrival of the new secular order, the New World Order. And the New World Order is one of the code names for this Illuminati agenda.
Even the most endearing of all American icons is believed by many to be a symbol of the Illuminati conspiracy.
The most obvious symbol of the Illuminati through history has been the torch, or the lighted torch, or the flame. Illuminated ones, Illuminati. Now, the most famous lighted torch in the world is the Statue of Liberty, right, in New York Harbor. Now, of course, because of the propaganda, Americans see that as a symbol of they're in the land of the free. That Statue of Liberty was given to New York by French Freemasons from Paris. And in this topsy-turvy world, that is not saying in New York Harbor, look, this is the land of the free. What that's saying is, we're running the show, we're telling you, but you can't see it, can you?
I think it's all nonsense. It is nonsense that's repeated and acquires a certain reality because it's repeated decade after decade by so many people, but it doesn't make it more true.
The official Freemason history claims no connection to the Illuminati nor any other type of secret inner circle by any other name. In fact, some state that the Freemasons are not a secret society, but an open society with secrets.
Now, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. I'm not saying that all Masons are sinister conspirators. It's not the case at all. But what Masonic historians and authors have made very, very plain is that within Freemasonry, there is a small inner core, an inner circle, if you will, of people who have some knowledge of the true agenda. And then you have a huge outer circle that basically doesn't even know the inner circle exists.
Who are the handful of men inside this so-called inner circle? To find the answer, conspiracy advocates point to one secret society in continuous existence since 1832.
Skull and Bones is a springboard for a young man to be brought in, trained, conditioned, imbued with these doctrines, and then placed into positions of power to carry out the agenda of the older secret society.
The ratio of Skull and Bones members who go on to significant positions of power, either in front of the camera or behind it, is enormous. The Skull and Bones Society does not operate in isolation. It is a strand within the greater web, and an important one in America. Presidents are not elected by ballot, they are selected by blood.
The Skull and Bones Society is founded in 1832 by 15 seniors at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. They establish a secret society with rules and rituals that remain unchanged to this day.
Well, secrecy has always been extremely important to Skull and Bones, but there's been a schizophrenic kind of aspect to it. For instance, throughout the early 1900s, the New York Times would often publish, sometimes on the front page, the names of the new Skull and Bones initiates. And the Yale class books would, up until the 1960s, publish the names of each class of Skull and Bones. Still, even though their identities were known, what they did inside the tomb was still supposed to be top secret.
The tomb is the Skull and Bones Clubhouse, a 3-story, almost windowless brownstone on High Street.
When I was an undergraduate, I lived next to it. It's a very spooky kind of place, and you could project all sorts of fantasies about what sort of spooky and horrific things are going on inside, just from the sense it gave, from the intimidating kind of aura it had.
10 years after he graduates in 1968, Ron Rosenbaum sets out to penetrate the confines of this secret society.
You would hear all sorts of stories about the initiations that went on, the kind of horrific psychodramas that they would put the initiates through. You were supposed to be able to hear screams, blood-curdling screams coming out of the tomb of Skull and Bones. And there were tales of strange sexual confession encounter groups, guys lying naked in coffins, wrestling in mud piles.
Rosenbaum attempts to interview the Bonesmen themselves, but most refuse. Instead, he gathers information from people close to the members, particularly girlfriends who have been given secret information, and some of whom have even been allowed inside. They describe an interior with all the trappings of a late Victorian Gothic fantasy. There is heavy, dark furniture, medieval armor, animal pits, and everywhere there are skulls and bones, including a skeleton bonesman called Madame Pompadour.
If you listen to what people have said who had some experience of that secret society, the Skull and Bones, it is more than just a talking shop. It involves the worship of the skull.
A number of reports say that there are niches with human skulls, and whose skulls they are. They're supposedly the skulls of famous people, and there's one skull that was labeled the skull of Geronimo. The reason why skulls and bones figure so prominently in it is a kind of strain of imagery that dates back to Masonic societies in Germany, in which it was important for a youth to contemplate his death.
The Skull and Bones initiation ceremony is said to be held in April in the tomb's basement. One distinguished member serves as master of ceremonies. Once enrobed, he is known as Uncle Toby. The shortest senior is appointed Little Devil and dons a satanic costume. A bonesman with a deep voice is dressed as Don Quixote. Another is dressed as the college's founder, Elihu Yale. Still another is given papal vestments. It would all be rather funny if it weren't for the fact that among the former bonesmen are three presidents: William Howard Taft, George Bush, George W. Bush, numerous senators and ambassadors, industrialists like William Whitney, CIA agents, State Department officials, and the publishing magnate Henry Luce.
For close to 2 centuries, Skull and Bones has produced the stewards and leaders of the American ruling class, the Eastern establishment, elite core of diplomats, spies, Supreme Court justices, senators, presidents.
The Skull and Bones Society seems to be particularly important for bringing American elite bloodline young people into the web and being initiated into the web.
I see the Skull and Bones people as, in effect, the people who created the American character. And they had their character formed in the basement of this strange tomb of Skull and Bones.
The reason that it is so secret is because if the people of America realized what its elite presidents of the future get up to, they'd realize that they live in anything but the land of the free.